Welcome to another episode of Hidden Variables, the podcast where we explore interesting people from all walks of life, sharing their fascinating stories and gifts, and who are making a positive impact on our world. Today, we're so honored to have a really special guest on the show, incredibly spiritual social media sensation, Megan Solarglow. Megan has captured the social media spotlight with her viral TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube videos. She's known for asking various deities about wide-ranging topics and receiving answers through the dowsing rods with a simple yes or no response. In addition to her popular online presence, Megan is a Reiki practitioner and a spiritual enthusiast. We are very lucky to have Megan join us at the Contact Modalities XPO in Delavan, Wisconsin, early this May, teaching an incredible workshop on the mysterious contact modality of dowsing rods and speaking to spirit. Please help me welcome the incredible Megan Solarglow to the show. Megan, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Debz. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Megan, there's just so much that we have to cover today. I'm just in love with your videos on social media. I think I first became acquainted with you via TikTok, and then, found you everywhere else. But doing divination myself with different modalities has been always a fun kind of thing for me. But it seems like it's almost your whole life, and you're so good at it. The first thing I would ask you is, how in the world did you get into this world, this arena using dowsing rods, for instance?
I kind of fell into it by accident. So my mother-in-law owns a crystal shop up in upstate New York, and she is a Reiki practitioner. And she had sent me crystals over the years, but I hadn't ever been very spiritual, personally. And one day she was like, "Hey, I think you would like to be Reiki attuned." So I was like, "Okay, sure, let's go for it." And she did this attunement on me, and there was just this moment of aha, because there was such this powerful energy flow. I liken it to a Kundalini awakening. I don't know if it was quite the same, but very similar. And it was this aha moment of, oh my gosh, this is real. I need to go explore everything spirituality, because this is suddenly a whole new world opened up to me. And so on my path, I found somebody else doing dowsing rods, and I was like, hey, I can do this. So I started doing it and then posting videos about it as just kind of a way to keep practicing the spirituality, keep working with the energy. And spirit brought me an audience. Wasn't something I was necessarily expecting, but it happened.
So having said that, would you agree that maybe that was really what you came in here to do? You predestined yourself to follow this, to find and follow this path, even though you did a bunch of stuff before, and you'll probably do a bunch of stuff after, but...
Yeah, I think so. I think there is some sort of higher purpose to doing all of this. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but probably something along the lines of just opening people up to the idea of spirituality and figuring out what makes the most sense to you. So,
yeah. I mean, there are so many ways to do this, pendulums. And in my case, I use little handheld two-way radios talking to ETs, basically. And it's all yes and no. It's just like the dowsing rods. But all kinds of ways to do this. What drew you to the dowsing rods specifically with all of the other divination tools that we have?
I like that the responses that you get from the rods are so visual and so obvious.
Yeah.
With the pendulum, it can be like, okay, is it moving back and forth? Is it twisting? Like, and I like that, and it works really, really well. But the dowsing rods, it's like a big movement, and it's really, really
Right.
obvious.
Right. Maybe could you just hold them up? I know you've got your rods with you. Can you hold them up and show people? So really what most people who are not used to this kind of thing may not know is that's just not a bent rod that you're holding in your hand where you can kind of manipulate it with your muscles of your hand. It's usually they're in a tube, a separate tube, right?
Yes,
Yeah, and they float in that tube.
yeah,
So you cannot just like this. If you try to do it, it goes all over, helter skelter.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. So I hate to jump on it this quickly, but since you have them in your hands, can we just have a little demonstration? Maybe just ask, and then we'll get into who you're asking and how that connects. But just ask a simple question and let the audience see how that big movement happens.
Yeah. So I always open with, if you're with me and willing to answer some questions, could you cross the rods for yes? Thank you. Could you open wide for no? Thank you.
Wow.
And then could you point to the direction of your energy? Thank you.
Wow.
So, would you like to figure out who we're talking to today?
I would love that. Yes.
Okay. Is this an ascended master? No, thank you. Is this an archangel? Yes, thank you. Is this Archangel Michael? Yes, thank
Oh,
you.
wow.
He likes to come in for these things, and he's usually who I call on. So
I just got the chills. I have a big connection with Michael myself, so that's really cool. Well, thank you, Megan, and thank you, Michael, for that demonstration. What I notice is, because I'm an energy worker as well, I'm Reiki master as well, and a lot of other things, but I'm very psychic and all of that. What I see in your energy is that you have a complete shift. As soon as you held those rods up and started asking questions, Megan just kind of got out of the way when it was time for the answers and just was, speaking when it was time to ask questions. Can you describe how you feel on your end of it?
yes, it's really interesting because when I sit down, like this is kind of my space where I always come to do this, and like having the lights on me and the camera in front of me, there's something about it where I just click into it almost immediately. And when I come out of these sessions, a lot of times I feel like very, very light, very like connected spiritually still. And so a lot of times I have to like go outside and ground because I'm like, I need to like come back to my body after this.
I hear you on that. I'm the same way. My studio is also my office where I do all my sessions, and so everything happens in here. It's also where I do my practice, where I meditate and do breath work and everything to become coherent. And so there is an energy. It's almost like you put on your uniform for the experience by being where you are. In quantum physics, we call that a conditioned space, right? Whether it's your body, your mind, the physical space that you're in, whenever you do something over and over again in a particular location or in a particular way, it becomes imprinted energetically. That's why you could go into, Stonehenge, walk into Stonehenge, not know anything about it, but walk into that general area, maybe walk into the circle of stones, and you feel completely different, and you feel an energy vibration that is completely different, right? And you feel changed. So that's conditioned space. And it's been proven that this happens. So I love that, like, I could literally see you shift as soon as you picked up those rods. It's really amazing and beautiful.
Thank you.
So let's see. You talked about Reiki too. How do you feel? Do you feel like they're connected? And if so, how is that connected?
Yes. So my sort of take on like all things kind of spiritual is it's all energy. everything kind of comes back down to this like basic energy unit. And so Reiki to me is sending energy out, pulling it up from the earth and the cosmos to send out to the world and heal people. Whereas dowsing is reading the energy. So it's just looking out there and saying what is.
Right. Great. And that's a great explanation, because what you're doing is giving people a direct experience on either end of that spectrum, which I think is beautiful. Do you feel like Reiki comes through you when you are working with somebody in a dowsing session, or even when you're making your videos?
Not so much, actually. I've had folks ask about that, and a lot of them do feel a lot better after the dowsing rod sessions, but I think it's mostly because they're also tapping into spirit and getting into that meditative space as well, as opposed to me sending them energy.
I see. Yeah. Cool. Well, because it's an ancient art, isn't it? I mean, we've heard about dowsing and divination ad nauseum, since like Egyptian times, or prehistoric times. Even people were using dowsing rods, even like little willow twigs or something, to find water or whatever. Do you have more information on like what the history is of it? How did it become so spread so worldwide, and then it just kind of went away for a while till recently, at least from what I understand, in our culture, maybe?
That's a great question. And honestly, I should probably go do more research on this because I don't have a lot of the information. I know it's been referenced in the Bible. Folks used to do it in the Bible before several revisions ago. Um, and then water witching has been very common. I'm not quite sure where it started, how it got started. I just know it's kind of been one of those things that kind of comes in and out of popularity. And it feels like we're kind of going through a period of where it's becoming more popular again. But yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed a huge reemergence of it. I mean, I'm getting way up there in years, and almost into my 7th decade. But I can remember, as in early childhood, I think we were 9 when I moved from Southern California to Southern Georgia. Big culture shock. But a lot of the, farmers and rural people where we were living did water witching all the time. And in fact, where we lived, there were a lot of they called them Indian burial mounds, Native American burial mounds, and those kind of earthwork structures. And these old men would go out and just like pick a peach twig off of a peach tree, and and start walking around to find arrowheads for us children. And seriously, we'd walk all over the fields and walk in the forest and everything, and suddenly it would go down, and we would dig there, and there would be arrowheads every single time.
That is so cool.
To me, that speaks about intention and connection. But how in the world did it know to go for arrowheads instead of water, for instance? I mean, I've speculated on this my whole life and never come up with anything other than the energy of the person is being read by the energy of the earth. I don't know. Or the spirits of the earth? What do you think?
Could be. I would think that the person holding the dowsing rods or the sticks or whatever it is probably attuning themselves to whatever object you're looking for, and that's what's causing the movement. I actually use the dowsing rods to find my television remote frequently.
For real?
I do. It gets lost, and I'm like, where did it works every time. I don't know why.
So when you're doing the dowsing rods, for instance, to find your remote, are you asking it questions, yes and no questions? Or are you using it like the water witch method, where you just walk around the house and they cross when you're getting closer? Or how does that work for you?
Well, so I start with the same, can you show me a yes? Can you show me a no? Are you willing to help me? And then I ask, can you point to the direction of where I should walk to find the TV remote? And it points there. And And then usually when I'm right over it, it crosses. And a lot of times it'll get lodged between like the nightstand and the bed. And I'm like, it's not here. Like, are you sure? And they're crossing yes. I'm like, okay, let me look again. And then there it is.
Wow. Kind of like when we were kids and played hot potato, cold potato, you know, are you getting hotter, hotter, hotter? So amazing. The process is so beautiful. I go into an energy myself when I'm just watching your videos. And I know that most of your audience probably does too, on some level. They must feel a coherency with you. And thereby also, I think, have a coherency with the energy of what or whomever is speaking to you. Do you have a favorite entity that you speak with, or could you name some of the ones that you speak with and ask questions of?
Yes. So I hate to name favorites. Archangel Michael is probably the one I talk with most frequently, and he's usually my default who I call in.
Cool.
For a long time, I was working with Merlin. He still comes in on occasion. He feels very magical to me.
Amazing.
Yeah. But as of late, I've been going through this series of like exploring different faiths and topics within these faiths. And I've been calling on the entities most associated with these faiths. So for example, this week I have a video coming out about Jesus. And so I asked Jesus if he would show up, and he came right through. So
Wow. That is so cool. That's really awesome. I know, I channel mainly kind of a group entity of star people, if you want to call them that, called the teachers, but anybody comes through, who's needed. It depends on the person. And often, they'll identify themselves. And it's always wild to be like how, I don't know how it works. I just trust that it works, and it's beautiful. But I can literally feel the different energies of the different beings as it's coming through. I don't usually remember much, if any, of what happens, which is nice because I don't carry around people's stuff with me. But do you find that too? Do you feel different qualities when you're speaking through that?
yes, so different entities feel differently. Like for example, Jesus to me is like this really like big, I don't want to say like foreboding, but like very serious energy. And like you can just tell he's like a really powerful being. Whereas Michael feels like very lighthearted, and he kind of likes to play, and he likes to be in the spotlight and have this kind of ego. Um, one entity I talked with recently was Baphomet. He had come through in a client session, and I was like, oh, he might be fun to talk to for one of my
Wow.
videos. And he has this like very dense, heavy energy. And I know some folks don't necessarily find him to be of the light, but he seemed like he had good intentions. It's just he was a really heavy, dense energy. And I think that might be part of what scares people about him.
It might be. I mean, isn't he the one in history who is kind of from the underworld and works in the underworld? Am I thinking of the wrong entity,
I
or?
think so. I think he's often confused with Satan, or like his portrait is attributed as Satan. So I
Oh,
think
yes.
that might be part of it as
Right.
well.
So, he holds the qualities of darkness that's in contrast to the light, which everybody has their own place in this cosmos, right? He's just as important as anyone else. But I do imagine that his energy feels far different than that of Michael.
Yes.
Wow.
It was so apparent. It was incredible.
That is so cool. So, can I ask a few technical questions about the rods? Like, do you have to do anything special with them? I did see you get what do you call that process when you're first, like, kind of keying it in? Is there a name for that process, or
Good.
it's just your
I'm
initial
not sure
process?
if there is. I guess intention setting.
Okay.
Maybe.
Are there any other protocols that you use in your practice as a matter of course for, as the session progresses, or and afterwards?
Yes. So I have some things I keep private to myself just because I don't want anybody kind of But one of the common things that I do with nearly every session is I'll have protective crystals around me. So I've got some
Yes.
tiger's eye on right now. um, what else? Asking for love and light and kind of having this like cleansed energy and meditation ahead of time is often something
Mhm.
I'll do as well.
Cool. And like you said, you have to usually or sometimes go outside and ground after a session, which I always do. I think my husband years ago finally got over thinking I was crazy to go out in sub-zero weather, without a jacket on and just go out and hug a tree or put my hands on the earth or take my boots off. But I do. I mean, I really, it feels like you have to kind of come back into this place when you're finished, right? So as a child, did you have any kind of gifts that you noticed before you started doing this?
Um, the things that I've noticed for most of my life, I've always had deja vu, very
Mm,
like a lot.
hmm.
And then I've always been a dreamer. So I dream nightly and extensively. So I always write those things down. But beyond that, like there was always like this thought, like, yeah, I can control the wind, like the movie Matilda, how she kind of did that with her finger. I was like, yeah, I can do that. And kind of looking back, and I was like, maybe I really was doing that and just didn't realize it.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I
I
don't
have
know.
no doubt. So, did you always take a kind of a different path than the other children that you knew or the young adults that you knew coming up? I mean, you're still really young, so you, you don't have a whole lot of history there to look at, but
Yes, I've always like I hate to say this because this is like me creating my own reality, but I've always sort of felt like an outsider. Like I
mm,
wasn't necessarily like one of the cool kids. Like I was kind of nerdy, kind of hung out with like the band kids, and we were always a little bit outside of like what is considered socially normal. And
oh, yeah.
so maybe there's some of that, but like I'm just me, so I don't feel like that. Like the very core of me has changed that way. It's just sort of the perspective I've taken of that.
Okay, cool. Well, good answer. I was also in the nerd group as well, and I'm so glad nowadays that I was. Um, because it really did, it afforded me more time, I think, to be out in nature and to commune with trees and animals and the water and everything. Um, the how did you how do you address skepticism regarding dowsing and your energy work? Does it ever come out to you, or are people so open now that you don't have to deal with it?
Oh gosh, no. The criticism is thick and it is deep. um,
Oh,
and that's okay. Like I view this as I'm sharing what my truth is to the world, and if somebody wants to watch that and see for themselves and maybe question their own reality, that's their onus, and I'm just here to help with that. If folks are skeptical, I'm not here to convince anybody. Like I don't need to. Like I do this for me, not like, and part of it is sharing and part of it is to help the collective, but at the end of the day, like I'm here for me to do this practice, not for everybody.
I love that answer. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I To me, this doesn't feel like work. It's my joy. It's my pleasure. And I've often told people, it's a selfish pursuit even for me because I get so much out of it, but it's so rewarding. But how did you decide to make that leap to go from just, doing it on your own to getting on social media and actually putting yourself on camera, putting yourself on the spot really and getting out in the public? When did that happen and how did that happen?
When did that happen? I think that was probably a year and a half or so ago now.
Mhm.
I had been starting to do the Reiki on my videos because I was like, I find this so helpful. Like, surely other people
Yes.
can. But then it was like, well, I'm trying this dowsing rod thing. Let me just put it out there and see if it resonates. And that seemed to resonate with people much more deeply than the Reiki did. So I was like, okay, we'll keep going with this. So yeah, it was a little bit of like just trial and error and like, okay, I'm doing this to keep up with my spiritual practice, but like other people are getting value out of this, so let's keep going.
Wow. So at the beginning, I can remember when, like TikTok came out. It was Musically before that. I don't even know if people remember Musically, but my grandchildren, when they were really small, got me to get on that app because Musically was a place where they could do silly dances and lip syncing and stuff. I mean, I think my grandson was maybe 6 when he was doing it. So it's been around for a long time. But eventually it morphed into TikTok. And so I just stayed on it and I didn't really do a lot with it. But suddenly, and I just stayed on it for my grandchildren so I could see what they were doing. But my granddaughter one day said, Grandma Debz, you need to be getting on TikTok and doing your work on TikTok because it's not just about dancing and singing. You have these different streams of people who have different interests, and there are people interested in what you're doing. You should just start putting videos out about what you do. I thought, well, whatever. But she kept after me, and it's really weird. And for about a year, it was just me talking to the camera because there was nobody, there might be somebody slipping in every once in a while from that For You page. But I'll never forget, there was just one video that I did, and this was the one that I did live in a parking lot in the rain at the grocery store. For some reason, the teachers came through and said, you have to make a video about what just happened today in one of your sessions. So I'm here, I'm like, my hair is wet. In fact, I think there were drops of water on the camera, and I didn't think anything about it. Finished, sent it, went into the grocery store, got my stuff, came back, did my thing. The next morning, it had gone viral overnight. It was the craziest thing. And I'll never forget that feeling. And I thought, why? Why did that one, where I don't think I used hashtags. I didn't do any of the stuff you're supposed to do. And I looked awful. But there was an energy because I was so excited. I had had some major breakthrough with a quantum hypnosis client who had connected with ETs in another life. And it just went crazy after that. And I can remember the excitement of that and thinking, oh, there are actually people out there. And then remembering or finding out that you could do lives after a certain time. If you get enough people, they let you go live. And that's when things really started picking up and I started really paying attention to it. Do people interact with you? I mean, you've got, I don't even know how many followers on TikTok, but you're also across these platforms and people are in love with you and what you do. Was there ever a moment where it just went like a quantum leap from one place to the other? And how did that feel? What was your experience?
It was a little overwhelming. I think it was maybe roughly this time last year. It might have been maybe like April. It was Instagram that went viral first. And I think within the course of 30 days, I had gained like 100,000 followers or something crazy. I was like,
wild.
oh, yeah. And I had been like used to reading all the comments, all the messages, and like going through those. There's no keeping up with it anymore. It just doesn't happen.
No. And that has to be a good feeling because I think about that, especially in your case, and, where you're getting so many comments and so many, messages, you can't keep up with it. You are reaching a lot of people with this work.
Yeah.
And it's good work. You're asking questions that are so deep sometimes. I'm very impressed with the questions that you ask. Where does that come from?
Thank you. I take zero credit for the questions, actually. I crowdsourced them from the audience, which I think is part of why people like to tune in. I have just a very simple form that people can fill out. All it does is ask for whatever your question is. And my list of questions right now is, I think, about 40,000 long.
Wow.
Yeah, so whenever I go to record a session, I just pull them from that list. I've started to try and organize them in like categories because when we do, if I just go down the list, you get kind of a mishmash of everything, and that can be a little bit jarring to ask about. So yeah, it's incredible.
Wow, that's crazy. I know that, we talked a little bit about how you came up into this, but your own personal spiritual evolution, was there like a something that always was like the underpinning of the tapestry of this that kept you moving towards this kind of work?
I don't think so, actually. I guess just for my background, I was in the Christian church probably up until I was like 5, 6, 7 years old. And then I did not do anything of faith. Like, I would occasionally go to church with friends, but that was maybe once every 3 years or something like that. But,
Right.
and it was all different like denominations when I would do that, but it was never something like I pursued on my own. It really wasn't until my mother-in-law came along that I was like, oh, I need to look into this. Otherwise, it was just kind of like this, yeah, I don't really want to listen to them because I don't agree with a lot of things that are
Right.
taught in a lot of those settings, and it doesn't feel good to me. So it's not something I want to do.
Right. Right. I had a long path too. I was raised, in a specific religion and went to a specific religious school for most of my childhood and all of that, very strict family. But a lot of it didn't mesh with what I was experiencing. And when I tried to talk about what I was experiencing, I would get sent home from school and punished. So, and I was a really shy, like super introverted, trying to, just keep my head down and not get in trouble kind of kid. And anytime I would try to ask questions about, these other beings that were just right here in the room, or, talking about the history of, a specific religious character that was being taught, and they would say, well, no, this actually really happened. And I would say, ask questions about it. I would always get sent home from school. So it was really traumatizing when I was a small kid till the point where I just thought, well, I'm just not going to talk about it. Of course, that just doesn't work, But did you ever find yourself? I'm sure you had a lot of questions about, the things you were being taught, but did you ever really come up against something that you knew finally was not the truth, and you had to talk about that with anybody? Has that ever happened to you?
Not really, actually. I kind of have the opposite. I just had a memory like pop into my head as you were asking the question. The
Cool.
one thing that always stuck out to me, my best friend's mom, when I was like middle school age, we were talking about ghosts because we were always sort of interested in that. And one thing that she said to me that like resonated so deeply was, well, in physics, energy can't be created or destroyed. So what happens to a person's energy when they die? And I'm like, oh, okay. And so that that stuck with me. But there was a lot of like the doctrine of religion where a lot of the things feel like opposites, like love thy neighbor, love the poor and the hungry, but also they're kind of on the out regions of society, so we need to not treat them well. That kind of
Yeah,
thing always bothered me.
right.
Sorry,
Which is
two thoughts
very
there.
prevalent in our world now. I mean, the direct contradictions are so profound, and I have my own opinions about what's going to happen next. I think I feel like it's all going to resolve wonderfully. I think it has to come to a head, and people have to just realize that maybe our past we've put too many labels on things and tried to separate ourselves, and it just hasn't worked for us. But that's really the main reason why I split from any kind of organized stuff and going into the depth of my own soul. Do you meditate? Do you have practices that you do every day or consistently to keep yourself in that higher state of vibrational energy?
I do meditate every night. I also listen to frequencies as I'm falling asleep every night. So
Love it.
usually it's just whatever YouTube pops up as the first kind of like, you should listen to 963 tonight. I assume that's spirit telling me what I need to do.
Yeah. It's almost like a prescription, isn't it? It's really great.
It
And the
really is.
solfeggio tones, I really do feel like those frequencies are really very, very powerful. I use them a lot, well, every day in my work and in my personal life as well. What about your personal aspirations? Where do you see yourself going with all of this?
Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. Uh, it's something that's been stewing in the back of my head, and spirit keeps telling me, like, you just gotta wait. Like, whatever's next is not here yet. And that's a really hard place to be because I'm a planner. I want to go do, I tend to live in my solar plexus, and my masculine energy of like, I need to go do. Um, but spirit just is like not telling me. Like, I have some ideas about things I want to do. Like, I would love to write a book. I'd love to do more like actual meditation type YouTube videos. I would love to do more client sessions, but it's just not at a place where I can do those things right now because I don't have space for it.
Mm-hmm.
My so right now, with Solarglow, I have I'm doing private one-on-one sessions with the dowsing rods or tarot cards or whatever else folks want or help. I have my weekly YouTube videos at shorts on Reels, TikTok, Instagram, but I also have a full-time job still, and so I don't have a lot of extra space right now.
Right.
So
Well, and that's tough. I mean, like I said, we are decades and decades apart in our chronology. But I will tell you that most of my life, from age 13, actually, is when I started working a real job. It was legal back then to be a 13-year-old and work a real job and pay taxes. But from age 13 up till age, 67, I had at least one full-time corporate job. And I moved up the corporate ladder. So I was pretty high level. It wasn't, it was very time consuming. Sometimes it was more than that. And I always taught yoga and did all of this work on the side, which wasn't really on the side. It was another 20 or 30 hours a week minimum. So people always thought, well, how in the world can you fit all that in? And you just do. You just do. And there were many, many times, there were a couple breaks in there where I just did what I call my sacred work, although I get beat over the noggin for saying that because they always say it's all sacred work. But, doing the spiritual work that I love to do, there were times where I did leave the corporate sector for a while and do that full time, but something always pulled me back. Some really compelling thing would pull me back. And I'd be there, why am I here when I want to be doing this, all day long, not just in evenings and weekends, for instance. And the answer always came, because you're needed there, your energy is needed there as well. Even if you don't think you're doing what you love to do, you infuse that energy in everything you do. And so when I do get a lot of younger people saying, I want to do what you do and I want to do it full time and everything. And I'm like, it may not be time for that yet. And your energy is needed in the outside world much more than in your little healing, facility or in your office full time. But I try to tell people, just make everything you do a sacred act, no matter where you are. And you're doing it, but they don't have to know what it is you're doing. But so when you do you do the sessions that you do you always do them in person or do you do them online as well?
no, so they're actually only online right now,
Okay.
which is kind of nice because the energy doesn't need to be right next to
there's
each other to work. So
No. I know. I used to do 100% in person until about 10 years ago. And then I started getting a following internationally. And that was really difficult for people. And who wants to buy an expensive plane ticket from Japan to come here or vice versa? And Skype was out. And I don't even know if you remember Skype, but it was pretty clunky. But I started doing some sessions over Skype. And then when Zoom first started, it was several years before the pandemic, I got on Zoom and I'm like, oh, here's the thing. For me, this was great. And after that, almost all my work is virtual. I still do some in person, but I find that it affords me the time to take more clients and It also gives me a record. I can keep the record and send it to them, the recording. So it's really helpful. I love that. I think the thing that I enjoy the most, though, in person are doing workshops and giving presentations at conference and everything. And I'm so excited to actually get to meet you in person in May when we're both at the Contact Modalities Expo in Delavan, Wisconsin. I
I'm so
mean,
excited too. I absolutely love
so
getting out and meeting people.
it's going to be amazing. And for those of you who are interested in it, you can see on the marquee that's going down below us, it gives you the website to get all the details and just take a look. It's 3 days packed with presenters and workshops. And Megan, talk about the workshop you're going to be doing, because I'm like beyond excited about this.
Yes, so I'll be giving a workshop just with a how-to of how to use the dowsing rods and helping folks kind of troubleshoot some of the common things that you run into when you're struggling to get them going. So
Cool. Um, so should people look into purchasing dowsing rods before they come if they want to come to the workshop with you?
if you want to use the dowsing rods specifically, yes, but not necessary. I'm also going to have a version where you can do muscle testing, so you can use your hands, or if you have a necklace, we can use the pendulum, whatever you want to come with. And if it's nothing, that's okay. We'll still make it work.
Oh, awesome. It's going to be wonderful. So, guys, please don't miss Megan at the Contact Modalities Expo. Her workshop is going to be very interactive. You're going to learn how to do this stuff. Like she said, you could even do it with your necklace if you want to. But if you have a pendulum or you have dowsing rods or anything you want to learn to work with, just bring it with you and let it be in that energy. That's the thing for me, is bringing my sacred items and having them be in the energy of someone who is really, really a high level person who connects and is coherence with the energy. It conditions your equipment, your items. So, and doing it in a group, I think, is also very powerful. Have you found that to be true?
Yes, I feel like anytime you're just in this group, and especially if everybody's kind of meditating, as we'll kind of do at the beginning, the energy reinforces itself and it just becomes so big and so powerful. And so a lot of times you kind of have to go outside and ground right after these things too, because it can be so much.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about it because we are going to have so many people at this thing. And, from dawn till, probably midnight at night, there's all this stuff happening, all the different contact modalities. And when I say that, I mean, we're trying to find different ways and show you different ways about how to make contact with high level consciousness, forms of consciousness, which, if we're being real about it, they're all you. It's just the different versions and layers of your being. But it's so important that people learn how to do these things, because one thing might seem really interesting, but the next thing that you go and explore might be the very thing that you've been waiting for, that will change your entire life. Like you said, when you first were experiencing Reiki, it felt almost like a Kundalini awakening. Well, it's kind of the same thing. It's just different variables, right?
Yeah,
and when you're in huge groups of people who are all becoming coherent because of these things, we're all going to be doing interactive presentations and workshops and everything. I think everyone's going to come away from this thing feeling like they're walking on a new earth once they leave, because of the very things you're doing. So I'm so glad you're coming. I just can't wait. Could we do a little bit more? I'm so excited about this. I just love it so much. So do you need to key it back in again, or?
Yeah, let's see. Michael, are you still with us? Yes, thank you. Are you
Oh,
still willing to answer questions for us?
not so much. Oh, yeah, you had to think about it.
It's like, what is going on? Yeah. Did you have some questions you wanted to ask about?
Golly, gosh, now my mind's a blank. It's so funny. Michael, is the coherent energy of the earth, the collective energy of the earth, going to improve shortly as far as human souls go?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's beautiful. And are we on the right track? People like Megan and myself and the presenters at this expo that we were talking about, are we on the right track to help people come together in that energy and expand it?
Yes, thank you.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Um, do you have any questions for him? I'm trying to think of something.
I do. Well, so there's a lot of like unrest out in the world right now, just with a lot of things happening. Are we going to be okay at the end of all of this? Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Is there anything we need to be concerned about right now? No, thank you.
Wow, thank you. It's harder when you have to put it into yes or no. I'm so used to it, but I know what I want to ask, but it's hard to put it into yes or no.
If you want, I can help you kind of put it into yes, no, if you have a thought.
Yeah, I think my main question is, what's the best way to get people all on the same track? Like, how can we get people coherent so that we can all move together forward?
Is continuing to do what we do one path to help awaken the collective? Yes, thank you. Are there other things that Debs and I specifically should be doing? No, thank you. Are there other things that other people should be doing to help with this awakening? Yes, thank you. Is there anything that Debs and I could talk to other folks about to help them along that path? No, okay.
Cool.
So,
Yeah,
sounds like we're on the right track.
It sounds very specific, actually. I mean, you really did narrow it down. I'd love to ask Michael what I am going to ask you, which I ask all my guests, but I know I'm considering Michael a guest. If there's a message for the world that he has, but how can we put that?
I guess, do you have a message? Yes, thank you. Is it something about keeping the vibration high? Yes, thank you. Is it something else that we need to know? Should we focus on staying grounded? Yes, thank you. Should we focus on keeping ourselves happy and of love? Yes, thank you. Is there any other things we should be working on individually? It's kind of a yes, no, maybe sort of answer. Are you getting anything that?
Yeah. Is it fine to just offer people one modality at a time so that they can get used to it?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's been my experience. I want to teach everybody everything, but it's, it can muddy the waters.
Yeah, and it can be so overwhelming to folks. Some of my client sessions, I have folks that work with like in the medical field, and they want to infuse more spirituality in practice. And all the different entities that I've had come through have said, yes, you should do that, but use really soft, approachable language. Like talk about, did you have a gut feeling? Did something just feel off? And kind of approaching it in that very like easy, gentle way. So it's not like, yes, I'm talking to aliens, of course.
Yeah. And where in your body did you feel it instead of what chakra was involved? Exactly, I think is true. And that's kind of the tutelage I've been getting is, speak to people from where they are, and mirror whatever belief system, because they all work as long as you stay within the boundaries of it being pure information. Speak about love, speak about truth, speak about, service to others and those kind of things. And all of those things, when we think about it, are the way that we raise our vibrational state and get into that, what you said earlier, the flow state, where everything just kind of It does. It's like streaming, isn't it? It's just streaming the universal field of consciousness, if you don't have a better word for it. But
Yeah.
you seem so tuned in. Are there times when you can't get anything to come through? And do you have a notion as to why?
Yes. Actually, about 2 weeks ago, I got really sick and I was doing my darndest to meditate. I could not connect at all. It was so frustrating.
Oh, I know how that is.
Yeah.
I know. Conversely, though, what I've found, I know I don't ever work when I'm super sick just because I don't, I want to be 100% for the people. But conversely, if I have a high fever, sometimes I get the biggest downloads. And I don't know, I used to think, oh, I hallucinated that, and that's just rubbish. But if I go through and do what I got in the download, it's very powerful. So I don't know if being in a deep state of sickness to the point where you kind of are shut out from the rest of the world kind of gives you the opportunity to sink in like that. But I don't recommend it for anybody. Don't try to get sick so you can get a download. But I agree with you. When you're not feeling well, it's just not, I don't feel that coherent, right? And I know you to be a person who wants to give 100% to the people you're serving too. So I'm sure you're doing that. Well, having said all this, I'm going to ask you that question that I ask all my guests toward the end, and that is, if you had a message for the world, Megan, what would it be?
Okay, I've got two for you. One that's really come to the forefront of my brain as of late is perspective matters so much. Because my truth might not be somebody else's truth. That doesn't make any one of them wrong or untrue. It's just you're looking at it from a different angle. And I think people tend to forget that.
Yes. Oh, profound. And
I just lost the other one. Spirit's like, no, it doesn't matter. Just perspective.
That's
I guess the other one is just live your own truth. Like, I think the thing that I've made my mission statement, besides like perspective, is just what makes sense to you. Like, I want people to go inwards and listen to themselves instead of whatever externally is being told to them. And that's one of the things I like about my platform is I'm asking these questions, and a lot of people don't agree with the answers, and that's okay. Whatever answer I get depends on which spirit I'm talking to.
Sure.
But what is your truth? If does that resonate with you and does it not? And figure out why. And then do that.
Oh, wow. That's very profound. Actually, that's one of the deepest things I've heard all day. So thank you. I'm going to say thank you to you. That's great. And I do notice that your process is after each answer comes, you do say thank you. Gratitude is one of I think it's right underneath unconditional love as far as the vibrational state. To keep saying thank you, to keep feeling gratitude, not just for the answers you're receiving, but for everything is so key for us these days. And I think our society has become very habituated in complaining, right? Or looking for the things that are wrong. And I think that's because we've been so fear-based for so long. It's a survival mechanism. Look for the things that might be scary or on the horizon that might go wrong. And it puts us in a state of stress and worry and fear. Whereas gratitude gets us, it's a pattern interrupt for that. And I love that you say thank you after every single answer, even if it's, crossing your yes for today or, spreading your no. And you always say thank you. It's beautiful. So I imagine you go through your day and your evening in the outside world, outside of your little studio there, your practice space, saying thank you to everyone, don't you?
I do. I will say I do fall into the trap of complaining. I've been trying to get better about it, but yes, that's actually one way that I've tried to infuse the spirituality practice into my work. When people come to me at work and are very frustrated, and I try to turn that around and say, "Thank you for coming to me and trusting me with your problem. I hear you're frustrated. How can we fix this?" But just
Oh,
thank you for coming to me as opposed to anybody.
that's beautiful. Spoken like a true healer. Really. That's
Thank
so
you.
beautiful. Well, Megan, do you have anything else you'd like to talk about or say before we wrap this one up?
Um, Nothing I can think of. I just thank you for having me on your show. I guess maybe just to do a quick self plug if you guys want to find me.
Absolutely. Where can
Um,
people find you and interact with you?
yeah, so my tag or handle, whatever you want to call it, is Solarglow Meditations. Solarglowmeditations.com. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads. I think that might be most of them. YouTube. Did I say YouTube?
Yeah.
There's so many, most of them. So yeah.
Good. Awesome. And I will put all of those, of course, all of your links in the description of all of the different versions of the podcast as well. But what I really have to say is thank you for being here today, but in this interview, because it's been so uplifting and so delightful. But thank you for being here, incarnating on Earth this lifetime, because I've been told this is the one where we change everything. And
Yeah.
people like you are kind of the way showers, and it's such a beautiful, gentle, sweet way. I want to follow that person like you rather than, the person who's saying we have to do this or the world's going to go to hell in a handbasket. Your energy is a beautiful light in the world, Megan, and I cannot wait to meet you in person and give you a big hug at the Contact Modalities XPO. And I can't wait to be in your workshop. I just think it's going to be an amazing experience for everyone who's going to be there. And then we have 3 whole days to explore a lot of things together. I think it's going to be wonderful. So for
Beautiful
any,
locations too.
oh, it's a gorgeous location. I think it's the most perfect location for this type of an expo because we're going to be doing indoor and outdoor things, especially at night. Outdoors, we're going to be doing the sky watch and doing meditation and things like that in different parts of the day. It's a beautiful site and it's right next to a lake, a bunch of woods. You can't ask for more. So we'll be able to go out and ground after your workshop really well.
Thank goodness. We'll probably need it.
Oh, well, Megan Solarglow, thank you so much for being one of the beautiful hidden variables that make our world a better place. I can't wait to see how far you go with all of this. I know that you're going to explode like a supernova and just brighten the whole world with what you do as you continue on. And thanks for being on. I hope we can have you on again sometime to check in and see where you are from time to time. But for now, we'll just say thank you. And in Lak'ech, I'm another you.
Thank you.